Hi everyone, Karis Johns back at you again, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I just love to be able to come online and speak to you about current events, psychology, spirituality, and the ever increasing uncertainty of our world today due to so many things shifting. So, a wide array of things that we could be talking about for sure. But today, something's really been on my mind. Actually, it's been on my mind for the last couple of days. You might have heard about the recent story involving His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There was an episode involving him and a young boy, and this took place in February, and it was caught on video, a public speaking engagement. And well, you all probably know and saw the video. How do you feel about that? I know how I feel about it, but I also know what I've been reading about it, and some things that I'm hearing and reading don't match my own perception and my own intuition about the situation. And for that reason, I felt that it was important for me to speak on it. So here I am. I want to share with you the statement that was released by the Dalai Lama's office in regard to this incident. They're calling this an apology, and so I'd like to share this with you now, and we can just read it together, think about it together, and decide for ourselves how we would like to categorize this statement. His Holiness wishes to apologize to the boy and his family, as well as his many friends across the world, for the hurt his words may have caused. And this was a statement posted to the Dalai Lama's website, as well as his social media accounts. His Holiness often teases the people he meets in an innocent and playful way, even in public and before cameras. He regrets the incident. Okay, here's what I want to bring your attention to. When someone apologizes for something, you name the thing that you did wrong. You name why it was wrong. And then you talk about what you are going to do to make sure that the wrong is corrected and never repeated again. And then you could ask for the forgiveness of the person who's been offended. So those are 4 steps that an authentic apology would include. I didn't catch those steps in that statement that was being called an apology. So I want to let you all know, if that felt off to you, that apology, you're not wrong. It felt off to me too. And I just want to help you to sift through your own intuitive faculties and be able to honor what comes up for you, because that's what really matters. And so if I'm listening to my own intuitive knowing about that statement, which was called an apology, which was not an apology, here's what I think. When you say I'm sorry for the words and not the action, you're acknowledging the word and not the action. You're not condemning the behavior. You're saying that the words were inappropriate, but not the behavior. But here's what happens, because after that, there's an explanation that's provided about how His Holiness is often playful and likes to tease. Does that satisfy you? It doesn't satisfy me, Because here's what that actually does is it excuses the behavior, it justifies and rationalizes the behavior, and it provides, I'm just going to use a word that has been thrown around a lot lately because I feel as if it's an appropriate word for what this statement did. This is gaslighting, okay? And here's why. When you first say, I'm sorry for something, but then you continue on to explain how it wasn't actually wrong in the first place, that's gaslighting. Because what it does is it tells the person who's offended that they're the ones who are wrong for being offended because there's actually this very innocent reason why everything happened. And so it places the blame for the perceived injury on the person who has been injured, and that is incorrect. And this is important. And here's why. Because this is now one of the most prominent spiritual figures, the most, outspoken authorities on, what it means to walk as a human in a way that is in alignment with rich spiritual traditions. That level of gaslighting coming from somebody with that much power creates a lot of problematic psychological detritus. Okay, so in other words, it makes debris for all of us. And we're all constantly sifting through this kind of psychological debris. That's why we're depressed. That's why we're anxious. That's why we're stressed out. That's why our thoughts don't flow in a balanced manner. Because we're constantly wading through these kinds of societal messages which promote a schism for the mind. You cannot be psychologically healthy while you're being abused. Okay? And statements like that are really just abuse. And I know that sounds extreme to say it in that way, but I really want you all to think about that. What is the cost to being lied to? And then told if you have a problem with being lied to that you just have problems. What is the cost of that? How expensive has that all been on us as a collective humanity? Because if it's going on at the level of the Dalai Lama and it's being percolated throughout modern society in the form of news and social media posts and commentary, then this is all pervasive. If this is being done at the highest echelons of our society, then these are the waters that we swim in, and it is not healthy. Now, I want to remind you, if you haven't heard of this beautiful, beautiful quote by Jiddu Krishnamurti, I want to share it. It's really powerful and brilliant. He says, "It is no measure of good health to be well adjusted in a profoundly sick society." And I want you to think about that, and here's why. If you're hurting, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, and you're not sure why, because you're doing all of the steps that you know you should be in order to take good care of yourself, I want this conversation to help you understand why. Another element, another layer of why. Why is mental health so in peril in our world today? Why is mental illness so rampant? You know, I'm giving you some very powerful information today, and I hope you will take it to heart and start using your little detective monocle to get very good at noticing when this type of gaslighting is being done to you or to society, as a collective or as an individual. I want you to start noticing when things don't line up. And the best way for you to do that is by listening to your gut. And if you're not sure how to listen, don't worry. You can learn. And don't be ashamed if these abilities do not come naturally to you at this time quite yet. Because as you learn some very basic skills, including how to honor your body's signals, your intuitive knowing will grow, and your ability to hear it as well. I promise. One of the ways that you can do that while you're sifting through the news or, scrolling through social media or talking to friends or maybe standing around the water cooler at work and you're taking in some information, take a moment to bring your sensory faculties inward. And we can practice this now just so that you can get a flavor for what this feels like. We're going to just allow our attention to go to our tummy. Now, as I do that, I just notice for myself, I didn't eat lunch. I also notice there's a little bit of pressure at the top of my belly. These are just pure physical sensations, and I'd like you to become familiar with your body's signals. Your tummy, the rest of you, your heart, your mind, your feet, your hands. All of your body parts share the ability to tell you things. And it's the time is ripe right now for you to get good at listening. Because all of this information, this data that your body is going to give you is invaluable. And another thing about it is, it will never lie. Your body is never going to gaslight you. You may try to gaslight your body out of habit, pushing through the body's signals. No, I'm not really hungry yet. No, I don't have to go to the bathroom yet. No, I can stare at this computer screen for another 2 hours, right? So we may gaslight our body, but our body will never, ever lie to us. This is our friend, and we can trust the wisdom that comes from within. And I want you to start to get familiar with what that feels like as you're taking in information and as you're talking to folks. What is your body telling you? Now, before we go, I would like to share one more piece of information about this news story. And the reason I want to share this is because it's another example of what it's like to tune into your body and what it's telling you as you're met with pieces of information throughout your day. So another layer to this story is that people have responded. People have responded to what has gone on with the Dalai Lama. Some in the camp of His Holiness are coming to his defense. The mainstream media is actually doing quite a good job of coming to his defense, I've noticed. I don't partake in the mainstream media per se myself, but I do catch snippets and headlines on places where I do go for my alternative news. And so I'm seeing that the consensus out there is that we should be able to move right along, and that we should focus on the positive works that this person and his organization have brought to the world in terms of charity. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? Does that sound like more gaslighting? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it sounds that way to me too. Now, I want to remind you, these are all just my opinions. These are all just my intuitive murmurings, the distillation of my subconscious inner workings that are constantly churning through the data. So this last thing that I would like to share with you comes to us via Instagram, and this is a post from someone named Trad Yogi, and he is speaking to the positivity that the Dalai Lama has brought into our world and how we ought to execute caution rather than jumping to conclusions, which in general I think is great advice. Here's what he has to say, and I'll let you sift through your own bodily awareness as I read. Trad Yogi says, there have been a recent mindless slander campaign concerning His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In short, His Holiness is accused of pedophilia for asking a young boy to suck his tongue and give him a hug. We live in an extremely sexualized culture. We have made the naked body itself sexual. Hence, we see sexual intent in his action, where there in reality is only kindness and playfulness. It is my firm conviction that HH is completely innocent of all accusations. I want to remind you, I'm reading Trad Yogi's words here. Trad Yogi goes on to say, asking someone to suck my tongue is a common way of bantering with kids in Tibetan culture. And sticking your tongue out is a traditional form of greeting. If it was His Holiness' intent to do in any way misuse the boy, he would choose to do so in private? Of course, he would never. Please, everyone, think well before you accumulate bad karma. Don't engage in slander and gossip based on headlines. He has done more for world peace than perhaps anyone alive. He has urged his people again and again to refrain from violence in face of the draconic oppression they face from the Chinese Communist Party. He is one of very few people deserving of the title world leader, and should be an example to us all of the dignity, energy, kindness, and virtue of which the human spirit is capable. Okay, guys, what did you feel? In the end, it's not for me to tell anyone what is true. My goal is to help you connect with the part of you that knows. And to be disconnected to a part of you that has been strangled and cut